Good afternoon, good evening to everyone joining. It is Island Forward Live once again. It is Wednesday. I am David Mullings, your host. Super excited to have you join us today because we're going to be talking about an interesting topic, dealing with Jamaican stereotypes. As you know, last week on the show, we were talking about what makes us proud to be Jamaican. But during that discussion, we had some comments that came in and had to do with the pet peeves that we have as Jamaicans. And then a few days later, there was a post from the BBC for a show called Famalam. It's a skit comedy show. And basically, Jamaicans everywhere have been outraged since that because of the stereotypes. So today, I'm going to have more guests than I normally have. We're going to have Odessa Chambers, a British-born Jamaican based in Jamaica now. I'll have her on. You're going to have Nathaniel Peat. I've known Nathaniel since 2007. We served on the Diaspora Advisory Board together in the Future Leaders capacity. And Nathaniel is now on the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council for the south of the UK, the United Kingdom. We're going to invite Kim Marie Spence. Kim also serves on the Diaspora Advisory Board. She deals with culture, creative arts. And then we're going to have Tara on here as well, also in the UK. So we're going to have a wide range of opinions. I think this is something that's going to be important. Looking forward to these comments. Look at this. I see Anne is here. Thank you for letting us know about this. And you didn't see the skit, but yeah, we'll share the link. I'm not going to play it on the show. I really don't want to give it that visibility because I do find it offensive as a Jamaican that's now based between the US and Jamaica. I myself obviously deal with the stereotypes of Jamaicans, but we need to make sure that we follow up on that because there's something probably different about how the UK is seeing it. So waiting for each of these people to get in, but I need some people to shout out. Tell me where you guys checking in from. I want to see which cities, which countries you guys are watching from, so we can do that little roll call at the start. I see Nathaniel is ready to come into this and start and talking as well. But let me get some shout outs. I want to shout out. I see Rachel in here. Thanks, Rachel. Big up for supporting. You're watching from Facebook. We have people on Facebook, not on Instagram today. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. And we're on LinkedIn and we're on YouTube. So thank you very much for signing in wherever you're signing in from. But big up. So London in the house. Big up London in the house. I see Webster. I see Sham is in here. So that means Texas is in the house. Vancouver, BC. Oh gosh, British Columbia. I soon get cold and I know you want some warm weather. So Sham, yes, she's in Dallas, Texas. Michael is back again this week. I'm in Vegas. Vegas is here. What's here? Illinois, USA. All right, we got some USA in the house. UK, Corey. Big up Corey Hyde. Oh, look at this one. I'm not Jamaican, but in London, I'm disgusted by it. I like that, Liza. I like that. And we got Paulette in Montreal. Love Montreal. Great reggae festival when it happens. And then Christine, Capo's daughter, signing in from New York. Big up. Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, New York. We got Brooklyn in the house. And then we got Tida. Toronto is in here. And look here, we got Fort Lauderdale. 954 in the building. Velora, Auntie Velora, thank you for checking in. We got some New Jersey in the building. So while we get that roll call going, it's now time for us to get into the meat of the matter. I'm going to bring in close friend of mine, Nathaniel Peat. He can give you some more color on what is this show in the BBC, what is this skit, and then why this matters. So let me bring in Nathaniel now. Sir Nathaniel Peat.
Yes, David, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, man, we heard you loud and clear. That look like a pilot headset, which I know you're a pilot.
Yeah, man, it's good to see you, David. And this issue is a big problem. We had something which was posted on Twitter. In fact, this is the first time we actually saw this footage of actors which appear to be faking a Jamaican accent. Of course, they are from West Africa, not from Jamaica. Right. And what they had was depiction of a game show known as Countdown. And within this countdown, we had very vulgar language which was used, speaking about women in a derogatory way. We had them putting up letters as though Jamaicans cannot spell.
Yeah, spell.
And then it turned into something like, right, what do you think? And they turned to a Rastafarian or the person that is wearing the dreadlocks, and they turned to the man at the end, asking him, what do you think? And then he is stoned out of his head,
Yeah, man. That
burning,
is.
burning a spliff, right?
Yep.
Then we have these stereotypes, which are then further perpetuated because the host then says, all right, forget the game show. Let's begin this rhythm. And they begin this rhythm and they start to gyrate and they start to do these actions. And the woman
Man.
start to gyrate. And then what happens is the countdown clock, where you have the image of a man with his hands up high.
Right.
You then have the man's genitals go down long on the counter for the clock, and now it is swinging backward and forward on the shadow of the silhouette of the man in the background against the clock.
Yeah, man.
It then moves into a frenzy whereby you have people, women bent over and men gyrating against them, a man gyrating against the side, and them just carrying on in such a vulgar way. The show was broadcasted on the BBC. This went out on BBC One, which is the national channel here in the United Kingdom. It went out on the BBC iPlayer, which is the equivalent of this online digital platform where it has the episodes of all of the series where you can rewatch and rewatch this thing. The vulgarity of this thing is so bad. And when I say that it has generated so much interest from Jamaicans and from those of color and those within the Caribbean community, as well as the Black community, the respectful Black community has now mentioned that this should not be on air. They have shown their annoyance with Twitter posts saying that is not funny. It is a mockery of Jamaica. It is destroying brand Jamaica's image in the United Kingdom at a time where Black Lives Matters is so important, where the image of Black people, the image of individuals needs to be shown in a positive light, not in a negative light, where our young people need to see positive role models. This inappropriate material was put onto Twitter, a social media channel, which has young people, youth as young as 14 years old can access this medium. And the BBC irresponsibly put this content online. And we are furious. And in fact, I had put a Twitter post out and I tagged the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Minister Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, who then responded to my tweet saying that she would be writing an official letter. I spoke with the Jamaican High Commissioner in the United Kingdom, who sent a message directly to me. In fact, I will read the message that the High Commissioner had written to me as something to put up, and he said this is unbelievable that the BBC, an institution with international repute for trustworthy broadcasting, could find itself in the gutter of promoting such harmful and destructive pornographic material that can only serve to damage the morals and the values we seek to encourage in our young people. This broadcast, which serves to tarnish and to insult the image of brand Jamaica, must be immediately pulled down from the BBC program. I call upon all well-thinking listeners and viewers to join us in this call to remove this program. And that came from the Jamaican High Commissioner. If I can go to what Minister Johnson-Smith actually had replied to my tweet, which I had written, which then sparked the interest from the Jamaica Observer, from the Huffington Post, from the Jamaica Gleaner, to mention that the minister would be writing an official letter to the BBC as a result of this very vulgar content which they pushed out. She generated a lot of interest. And Minister Johnson-Smith had written the following: "This is outrageous and offensive to the incredible country which I'm proud to represent, along with every Jamaican at home and within our diaspora. BBC Three, BBC World, I will be immediately writing formally on this hashtag stop this show. And so we really charge the Jamaican community internationally, in fact, any respectable person, to get on this, to stop this show, to get this thing pulled down. We've written letters directly to Ofcom, which is the official reporting, broadcasting, monitoring regulator. That's right, here in the United Kingdom. In addition to that, complaints have been lodged at the BBC. It really is bad, really bad.
No, man, that is good. All right, so Tariq saying hey to us. Let me bring in Odessa from Jamaica, and here Odessa is a British-born Jamaican as well, works in production in Jamaica, television production, and I want to hear her opinions as a Jamaican based in Jamaica, but born, raised in Britain with that exposure as well. Because you are actually in the UK right now, correct, Nathaniel?
Yes.
All right, so let me bring in Odessa now, and then I'll come back to you. Odessa, welcome. Yo, my day, I know, so you just hear what Nathaniel say, and you didn't see his tweet. You just saw the BBC one, and you had gone on and commented about this because you are a person, you host your podcast, Reasoning with Odessa, and you're all about the culture, especially promoting Black culture. How did you react when you first saw this tweet with this clip?
Well, what I first saw was a post from The Guardian, the UK Guardian, and then I clicked on and I read it, and then I went down to the BBC, the actual clip, and I was just disgusted and instantly tweeted, you know me, I don't really mince words. This is efferis, and that it needs to, if it's been broadcasted already, it needs to stop, it needs to come down. But at the same time, me growing up in the UK, it wasn't shocking because culturally what they do is that they always sneak in subtle things that is derogatory towards Jamaicans or Black people or Africans, period. So for me growing up, that's how the system is. That's how Great Britain is. Wow. They're sneaky with this. It's just like you'll mention it to your friend growing up in the UK who might be white, and he might say, oh, all right, Winston, just keep it quiet. It's all right. It's just a giggle. Winston, the word Winston alone is a derogatory thing because they think like all Black guys are Winstons, are called Winston. So that's another stereotype. So it was shocking, but it wasn't like outrageous for me because I know that's what they do all the time.
So you are someone who works in television production, and so you understand when something is, for example, like an In Living Color that we grew up seeing, right? Is a sketch comedy show or Saturday Night Live versus what this happened. Like this seems to have gone beyond the pale and not just the traditional. Let's put on some, locks and play some reggae music. This just went so much further. How do you think they managed to approve this? And this was done by Black actors. This wasn't white actors pretending.
This was done by white actors, from what I've been told by a sister-in of mine that's based in the UK, Marianne, that the director is African. I'm not sure, Nigerian, Ghanaian, whatever. And no, the director is white. The producer is African. The actors are obviously Black. But again, it doesn't shock me because, you have people that will do their thing for money and they don't care. They don't care. They just want to collect their money. They're not for the cause. There are a lot of people that are in production who are Black or people of color that will do anything for money, to collect their money. They're not for the cause. It's just like me working with House Hunters International. They're coming to Jamaica and I'm telling them that we're not shooting any gullies, we're not shooting any ghettos, we're not driving through there. And I took my stance with them with that and made sure I told the driver that we're not doing that. We're going to show Jamaica in the light in a different way. They want that. Oh, it's grimy, it's this and that. We're looking for, no, because Kingston is not only like that. This is what Kingston is like. So if you as a producer or somebody in production doesn't take a stance, then you just don't care. So if you're not brought up that way to be a bit more radical and thinking in a certain way, there's not going to be any changes. You know, just collect your money and keep quiet and just do your thing.
So would you say that this is a reflection of a bit of mental slavery?
Yeah. It's colonialism still. Not every Black person is for the cause, and we've got to understand that. You know what I mean? Not every Black person. Some people just want to keep quiet and they're not about it, or they do it because it's hype or it's cool now to be pro-Black because Black Lives Matter, or they're doing it to have a hashtag and to push themselves or pivot themselves into something that they're not really about. It's just clout chasing, or it's just something because everybody's talking about it. But we really have to be about the cause. So people who are working in production, and there's lots of things that have happened in Jamaica that have come out that's derogatory in Jamaica. I had an opportunity to work on Top Boy. I didn't want to work on Top Boy because Top Boy was not promoting Jamaica or Jamaicans in the UK in the light that I want to see. I took a stance. I did not want to see shotters because I'm tired of seeing movies that are going to be stereotypical of what our culture is, and we're more than that. So I take a stance of not working on projects like that. I take a stance of not producing projects like that. When I do television, Jamaica's Daytime Live, I take a stance not to promote unhealthy topics that are for our nation, you know? So
I like this. I'm going to bring in Nathaniel and Peat, both of you on here now. And I love that you brought up, Nathaniel is back now, and I love that you brought up.
Nathaniel.
Well, I'm Odessa. Or I should say, what you saying? What you saying, Odessa? You're cool.
You're cool, man. You know, so the little poster behind.
You know, I'm not used to this though, because I'd rather have a little bit of rhyme or something when I'm doing these kind of things.
No, well, that's what used to be behind the camera. I'll be honest. But all right. So Odessa, you brought up something that I have to then touch on. We talk about stereotypes, and I want Nathaniel to comment on this as well, because we all in the same age group, our generation. And you brought up Shutters, you brought up Top Boy. And I go back to Steven Seagal and his movie that, Marked for Death, and the way Jamaicans were portrayed in that film, the way we get portrayed consistently in Hollywood and now obviously in the British. What has caused that? Is it that our music or dancehall in particular tends to make people think that way, or is it that we have a few Jamaicans have given us a bad name? We haven't pushed back. The rest of us haven't. What is it? What has caused that?
We don't own our media. That's where it starts from. Oof. So we cannot put out shows. I was watching Vikings. I've been watching Vikings on Netflix, and I'm sitting there watching Vikings, saying to myself, oh my goodness, I wish I had a budget. I wish I can speak to all the top Black money people to do a movie on the kingdom of Mansa Musa. I would love to see it like that. We don't own our own. That's why I took a stance of having my own little media platform, which is O Access Jamaica. And I'm happy to work for a Black-owned company such as Television Jamaica at the same time, but we have to own our own media and we have to support our own media. And you know more than anybody, David, that I've been campaigning for this for the past 3 years, that we need to support and own our own media and do our own things on our own platforms. There's so many television stations in Africa that we can do. There's so much television stations in Jamaica or across the Caribbean that are Black owned. We can pitch to Revolt, to Puffy Station. There's so much, but we pitching to these other companies that are white owned, that only have an agenda to make us look bad and not to promote us in a positive light. We're not going to really get what we really want at the end of the day.
Yep. I love it. And so Nathaniel, you are an EY entrepreneur, right? You actually mentor a lot of people. You're a successful entrepreneur. You graduated from a Branson Center out of the UK. You're very well known on that side. Do you agree with Odessa about that one, about owning our own media, telling our stories?
Absolutely. I completely agree. You see, the thing is, any changes that need to happen from the top. And where you have somebody that is not culturally connected, where you have an individual that doesn't understand the journey of a people, when you have an individual that plays into the general perception, stereotypes of a group of people, then you are going to continue to get this type of output. In order for us to create any type of changes, we need to have individuals that look like us, that have experienced the same type of thing that we have in those positions of influence. And on top of that, it is not just about affluence, it's about influence, because many of us may have friends within these industries. And it's about speaking up. So those people that are at that level is to speak up, to speak about these issues, to try to pull in more. But we collectively now, as an entrepreneur, I'm actually involved in a TV channel, which you know, David.
I was about to say you need to bring it up.
Yeah, we're actually going to be doing a new TV digital platform known as Aki TV, whereby we're going to promote them Black based and culturally based positive news, positive entertainment, which will help to then boost our viewership amongst people that look for this type of content. This is about really elevating ourselves up and seizing the opportunity now to actually mobilize ourselves as a group of people to come together, utilizing our skill sets to put pressure and lobby these groups, to put pressure on the BBC to force their hand somewhat to do things which are better. But on top of that, it is for us to strategically place ourselves in a position whereby we're able to influence. We're speaking about having more Black directors. We're speaking about having more Black. When I say directors, I don't mean directors of the films and directors of the content of the shows. I'm speaking in terms of the business directors. Yep. These are the guys that hold the money, that hold the cash at the top. We need people around that table. Then we push pressure from beneath, we push pressure from the top, and we begin then a cultural shift. The problem that exists in the United Kingdom, it is systematic. It is built into the backbone of the British system. It is built into the backbone of the banks. It is built into the backbone of the police. It is built into the backbone of corporate London. It's built into the back of the television and media. And so it is about tearing down the systematic racism and to tear down these ideas which are perpetuated to really knock down and to push down a group of people. And I think this is a good time to do it. We have the world speaking about Black Lives Matters now, and now is the time to do it. This show, just to add to this, in fact, this show in particular has mocked even slavery, whereby on one of the shows, one of the episodes, you have an episode whereby one of the slaves says, "Slaves' lives matter. Slaves' lives matter." Then you have one of the other slaves say this, "But slave masters' lives matter too." And then there is this dialogue between the two in the middle of the middle passage.
No, man.
Where this greatest atrocity that has been done to our people, where there has been no reparations for the terrible thing that they did, where you had billions of pounds equivalent to what was awarded them with the lost property of slaves that went into these over 200 families in the United Kingdom that have benefited from this. And they have mocked using our own people that look the same as us to bring humor to this. And I think it's just wrong. This would never be done with Nazi Germany. No. Whereby they will say Nazi lives matters too. That would never happen.
Never. It would never happen.
So why has this happened to us? Again,
we don't own anything, and we don't have
That's the truth.
We don't have anything that says that's put in place like what the Jewish community has. When you understand me, to say that this is wrong and we're going to shut you down, and same way like they shut down Wiley. It's
so I love you. I love you.
They don't have it. They don't have it.
So we don't seem to be united as a Black diaspora. The Jewish diaspora seems to be united. Whether it's Jewish people, because I have friends, right? I have investors who are Jewish, and they have said to me, "David, I don't understand why all of you Black people in the Caribbean, in South America, the ones in the diaspora in Canada, the US, the UK, how come you guys don't have, one big organization with arms in different countries that can speak as one voice and ensure that people aren't."
It's going to take a while because it's divide and conquer. And we've been divided and conquered, and we're not, until we understand each other and our colonial mindset to get rid of it. It's still going to remain the same. But we right now, as David and I are partners, so you have to stick to like-minded people who are going to share that whole dream with you. And once, as we say, we're a culture of follow, love follow
Mhm.
too. So once they see certain things happening, follow fashion monkey, gone by rice and peas. As soon as they see us doing it and moving as a movement, that's when they're going to jump on board. And it's sad to say that not everybody are a part of, they're not leaders. There's only
Yep.
probably 10% of us that are leaders that are going to do it for the rest of us to move forward,
All right, hold on. Nathaniel, I see you saying exactly. But you're that was funny to see pop up because you here, but okay, you're saying exactly. But Ingrid is saying, our good friend Ingrid is saying we must start with what we have. We have cell phones, we have podcasts, we have blogs, start there. And I
That's
love that
exactly
because
what I'm saying. Yeah.
so one point. And so you have your podcast, Odessa, which has gone from audio to now video and audio. Nathaniel and I were on a phone call yesterday because Real Vibe Studios, which works with you on that, which is owned by Blue Mohawk Capital Partners, is going to make sure that content shows up on Aki TV. And then we can start building that. So I love that. And see Kian saying mindset for real, which is, would you say Garvey is where we need to start at to talk about that mindset and that unity?
Mind control. We have to control our minds, and it's as I said, we've got to support. When Ingrid brought up that, we support each other. I've been supporting other podcasters, jumping on board of their podcasts. We're doing the same thing. Also, the artists, the people that are pushing music out there and asking us when we take our time out to promote them, they have to take their time out to promote us and give us back the love, and not just be supporting the white-owned publications that are making them feel that they've arrived, because we know that they've always arrived and they've always been our stars. You understand?
Billboard.
Yeah.
Billboard. All right, so I see Tara is here, and I want to get her in, so I'm going to have you two drop out. Let me bring her in and get some in-depth stuff with her, because I've never met her, but her bio was just so impressive, and Nathaniel said I had to get her on. So thank you to both of you. Don't leave, though. I'm going to bring her back in.
All right.
Let me bring in this lovely young lady. Please tell the viewers a little bit more about yourself, because I will not do you justice based on what I have read about you.
Thank you, David. So my name's Tara Johnson-Reid, and I am the UK North leader for the Global Jamaica Diaspora Youth Council, which is an initiative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade in Jamaica. So that's my leadership capacity in terms of the Jamaican diaspora. Also, I have some experience with, issues around race is always something that I've been interested in. Despite the fact that I studied biology and then communications and I work in business consultancy. But anyway, just growing up in the UK as a Black female, race is something that I am constantly, that I'm made to be aware of. So it's something that I've studied and that I'm interested in. Right now, we're in the midterm of the UN Decade for People of African Descent, which is something that's been declared because the United Nations has recognized the specific needs of people of African descent, because often people talk about racism, and racism itself is a massive issue, but within that we have anti-Blackness, and that is a term that has only just become popular over the past few years, which is one of the aims of the UN International Decade. So I received some training on that from leaders in Brussels. So that's the kind of capacity that I've come here to speak in, but also I'm just a Black British person who saw that show, has been aware of that show, and was just grossly offended by it, and that's how I got involved in the conversation.
No, and so I appreciate you bringing that side to it, because a lot of people actually don't know this was declared as that decade by the UN. So I love that you bring that up. And so when they declare that as this decade, and we see what's happening now around the world with the Black Lives Matter movement, and we're talking more about systemic racism now. You are the generation after me, so I love seeing that this is a topic that matters to you, and we need more of you to speak up as well. Hopefully, the world you inherit is going to be better than the one we inherited, and you play a role. But what can people of your age do to play a part in ensuring that this never happens again?
Well, it's ambitious too. Sometimes it's difficult to imagine a world where we don't have these things happening, because it's all that we've known. It's all that we've ever known. But yeah, it's important for us to imagine and to work towards the societies that we want to live in, the things that we want to see, spaces where we can live without constantly being made aware of being Black and having a lower social position because of that. In terms of working towards that reality, there are so many different things that can be done. I know that you've already spoken about kind of building our own spaces and having our own resources, and that's something that is really important. But then at the same time, we can't neglect the avenues that we have within the institutions that exist. So the BBC has a complaints procedure, and we saw over the past month, there was a really unfortunate and terrible incident where they actually used a really severe racial slur, the N-word, live on air twice. The BBC broadcast that, yeah. So, and 18,000 complaints were received in response to that via the BBC complaint system and Ofcom. And the volume of complaints was really important to just demonstrate that people in the society were not happy with that, and that wasn't acceptable. So we need to build our own spaces and institutions and respect the work that our counterparts are doing, but also we need to exhaust the avenues that we have within these institutions to really make our voices heard and let it be known that these things aren't acceptable. So yeah, like retweeting, speaking, and just going online and complaining through those avenues, those things are important as well, to try and work towards that future with less racism.
Do you think there is also a place for us to actually take jobs in these places and try to change them from the inside and out? It seems that is that a realistic venue, or you think that when we get in there, we just get silence instead? I don't know what it's like in the UK.
Yeah, so that's kind of a debate that's ongoing. There are some institutions that are just so that's why we talk about systemic racism as well. So some people don't realize the difference between systematic racism and systemic racism. So systematic means that there is a series of functions that are designed for a racist output, but systemic racism means that even though the overall aim of the system might not appear to be racist, it doesn't matter who acts within the system because of the way that it's been put together in the first place. No matter who is in charge, the outcome is still the same because of the way that it was designed. People accuse the police force in America of being that way because it was designed initially as a slave catching organization. But anyway, so in terms of trying to change institutions from the inside, I think that, like I said, we have to exhaust all avenues because as we live our lives and try to imagine the future, we also have to be trying to work towards what we want to see. So and there's no blueprint for this. So I think that we have to do everything that we can. It is true that some people get into these positions and are kind of used as tokens and then don't really fulfill their roles in the way that we want them to. But that doesn't mean that we should give up on participating in these structures, because that is also a way to cause change.
All right, I'm going to ask you one more question and then bring in Odessa and Nathaniel as well, because I want their opinion on this one. But Elaine is pointing out, I would like one of you to walk in my shoes for 1 month as a Jamaican who has reached the top of the food industries in the place where I'm living, only for it to be destroyed by Black Americans. Jamaicans just need to have an opportunity in Jamaica so they can stay and build a country. You are obviously of Jamaican heritage as well, but you were born in the UK. Has that caused friction with, other Black diaspora members in the UK? Because I know here in the United States, we've had major issues, and we've seen it right now with the vice president pick, Kamala Harris, being told she's not Black enough by some Black people. There's not anybody else saying that. So, and I personally experienced that going to university here in the United States. Is that something you're experiencing over there?
Well, people on social media joke about Diaspora Wars and like Jamaica versus Nigeria and Jamaica versus the whole continent of Africa, which is obviously ridiculous. Jamaica's a tiny island. I take that as a compliment. But on a serious note, sometimes we're kind of described as being a monolith of like Black people as being like one group. And the reality is that we have so many different ethnicities within that, so many different cultures, nations, languages, and there will be differences between people. You spoke before about the Jewish diaspora. There are other diasporas that we end up comparing ourselves to who share a common language, who have few different ethnicities within their diaspora, but the Black diaspora is very large and very diverse, so there always will be differences. I've found my experience of going to university in the UK, I went to the University of Leeds, and I found that was really an education in terms of learning more about other different types of Black people and learning to appreciate their cultures. I know that actually the television show that was broadcast that kind of sparked the debate and controversy, it wasn't written by a Jamaican person. It was written by an Ivorian. So I think that's an example of where there's been a misunderstanding and a lack of empathy when it comes to differences within the diaspora. But that's something that we need to be aware of and kind of work through. And we have to remember that we're not a monolith. We are different, and we have to respect those differences.
Respect the difference. So I'm going to bring in Nathaniel next, and then Odessa to talk about their experiences with that. But I love what Anne is saying right here, is when she went to grad school in USA, I was asked if I was sure I was really Black because I didn't talk like my African-American classmates. And so I can speak to that. I went to school in Miami, which is a very multicultural and diverse community. In fact, there's a city, Miami Gardens, which was founded by Jamaicans. And we ended up having to have a meeting on campus in the UC, the University Center, between the United Black Students Club and the Caribbean Students Association. And we, the Caribbean students, were accused of acting white. And we had to ask them, what do you mean by acting white? And they said, oh, the way we talk. Like, we grew up in a British colonial historical country. We speak the Queen's English. That has nothing to do with being white or Black. The way we dress too white. And we're like, what do you mean we dress? Because we dress proper. We were raised a certain way, and we dress what we consider to be proper dress. That stuff is, in my opinion, is very divisive, and we should be doing that to each other. But this is not. It doesn't sound like it's rare at all, and it certainly doesn't sound like a US-only problem. I want to hear from Nathaniel as well, who I'm going to bring it up again, different generation. Nathaniel, in your day, or even now, has that happened to you as well, where people say you are not Black enough, or you're Jamaican and they separate you out, or we have that infighting? Have you had that?
I've had racism. I haven't had issues of not being Black enough, but I've had issues of racism. And we have to own our culture, and we have to be engaged in our culture, but I think we need to be adaptable, and this is about a re-education of our people, really, because the fact that I might change my accent right now and talk like how Tara talks, is because I have flexibility. David, you have Jamaicans. David, you have Jamaicans in France, French diaspora that speak French.
Amen.
This is about being multicultural. It's about being adaptable. It is a skill set. It's not a disadvantage. Now, it is about us being culturally aware. And this is something that both my position in terms of as a Global Jamaica Diaspora Council rep for the South, and also Tara's position as a youth rep in the North. The Global Jamaica Diaspora Council is to try to mobilize the wide global Jamaican diaspora populace, whereby people in the different countries that are not necessarily from the traditional areas of the United Kingdom, or that be that Canada or North America, we are now trying to mobilize wider. And I'm sure there's many people that have experienced levels of racism. I have experienced levels of racism within my aviation. I remember a pilot said to me, he said, someone like you will never fly a plane in Britain. That's what he said to me.
Wow.
I've had comments like this. There's two people that shouldn't be in the flight deck. One is a woman, the other is the N-word. I've had these types of statements which have been spoken. In fact, I was speaking with a pilot today that had experienced this level of racism. On top of that, it is further pushed into society, and this perception of Black people being a negative breed somehow, or people from the Caribbean being the lowest of the low, because when we're looking at statistics of stop and search, you would have more Caribbean Black than African Black that are now incarcerated. there is deep issues in terms of institutional racism. Tara had mentioned the difference between the two, where you have institutional racism, where it is normalized into the organization.
Right, in the system.
I will give you an example with the police, whereby you have black police officers, which are now facing racial hatred from their own people. Other black people are now commenting negatively towards the black police officers that are
Right.
now policing with the rules of the system, in that they're doing stop and search, and now they are now being called coons and
Right.
and
So isn't that a throwback to the days of plantation slavery, British colonialism, where we divided and conquered the slaves, and we had other slaves who were better off, right, in the house or so on, and they would keep down the other slaves. They would report somebody for running away, turning them back in. Is that pretty much the same thing that some of these have we seen again?
It is seen in that context, you know, and of course, you know, black police officers are trying their best to do their job. You know, they've been passionate about this thing. They wanted to do it probably since they were young, and they're proud when they wear their uniform.
Right.
When they're policing their own community in the way in which the institution says to do it, that's when they're facing the problem. If now that black police officer has the ability to police in the way in which he recognized with the cultural understanding of his own community, now he creates the rapport with his community. Now he's a trusted person within his community because he's doing this now from his own cultural understanding of the people that are there, as opposed to the
Yep. All right. So
institutional.
these
These
no man, I
these
get
things
you.
are deeply embedded.
All right, so Kim Marie Spence has joined us. So I'm going to pull the both of you out, and I'm going to bring in Kim Marie because I really want to hear her opinion, especially from the creative art side. This is someone that I've known, former film commissioner in Jamaica, and a lot more than that. So I'm going to bring in Kim. Thank you guys so far. Don't leave. And Odessa, I'm bringing it back too. Kim Marie.
Hi, how are you doing, David? Hi,
Hi.
everyone.
I am doing good under the circumstances in the state of Florida with COVID-19. So I hope you're doing better than me at this point
I'm
in
in
time.
the UK, that's all I will say.
Yeah, we know. Well, you know, Florida's still worse. That's how I will put it. But Kim, you sit on the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council representing especially creative arts, but you have been a film commissioner for Jamaica. You've been involved in the creative industries across the region, the Caribbean and more. You've gone to school in Australia, and you've been to New Zealand, all over the world. You've published on this specific topic. How did it make you feel to see this kind of a skit being promoted globally on social media?
You know, my first reaction was disappointment because I thought it was lazy. So, you know, look, every group has to deal with stereotypes. And stereotypes have been the fodder for comedy before my time and after my time.
Yeah, man.
The issue was it didn't use that to say anything. It was what I wrote in my article on Jamaicans.com. Thanks for hosting it, and Rhythm Style as well. That it was punch down humor, meaning like it was meant to denigrate. There was no smart point from it. You know, since I'm in a Jamaican forum, I'll talk about, let's go back to even a thing like Oliver at Large, which a number of us are familiar with. And Oliver, one of his most famous skits was, you know, the first time on a plane.
Yeah, man.
You know, look, it was making fun of that country bumpkin first time on a plane thing, but it also was highlighting how much you aren't told, how much prep does, and some of the absurdity of going on a plane. Like, why don't you get, well, if this is a Jamaican airline, why I can't get Jamaican food?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, but it wasn't, I felt like we were in on the joke with Oliver. I didn't feel like we were being mean. I mean, yeah, we were making fun of, but it wasn't mean. This was mean. Like, so what do we get from it? That Jamaicans don't speak English when there are classes all over the world with people trying to speak like us. So what are you actually saying? We all have dreadlocks. I have dreadlocks. So, you know, I have no problems with dreadlocks. This is not a bad thing. But that is not a representation, and a member of the Black British community knows that, right? Then you have the whole thing of the like well-endowed. I can't even dignify that one, right? Like that goes back to like slavery stereotypes.
Literally.
Is there anything wrong with being well-endowed? No. Look, I don't have a problem with that, but it's the stereotype and how that has been used, and it was used in that skit to almost say that because we're well-endowed and have, you know, a healthy sexual life or whatever, that we're also stupid.
That is
racial stereotype. That was what this was used to say why Black people should be okay with being slaves because we're inferior. I mean, you take it the history of that particular stereotype goes way back. So that, and then, you know, so it's lazy work. You're using stereotypes, but you're not doing anything with it. And then on top of it, add insult to injury. It's done by members of the Black British community. And yes, I mean, I don't buy into this whole thing. People, there are differences where the Black community isn't of itself a rainbow, right? And so, you know, not all Black people are the same, blah, blah. So I don't need to say that in this audience, but it did hurt more that in a moment that we're still talking about BLM here in the UK. We're still going through the Windrush scandal where the post-war generation of Caribbean immigrants, including Jamaicans, who have contributed a lot to what is now British culture, that you make fun. So I just, the political moment, the laziness of the sketch, the stereotypes used, which were dated. They're not even new stereotypes, David. Like we have some new.
It's the oldest ones.
I know. Look, if you were gonna do Jamaican stereotypes, what about some new ones? Like do the research. Like I was just on so many levels. So
do you agree with Nathaniel and Odessa's points about owning our own media entities, our own outlets to tell our stories as well? I mean, you were film commissioner. This is exactly what you were working on.
No.
Okay.
Yes. All right. The yes is sure. Do we need to tell Jamaicans telling our stories and even diasporic Jamaicans telling our stories? Yes, completely. Could never be against that. But the issue is not just, okay, we tell our story. The issue is also, so those who are already in positions of power, if they don't get a free pass that, oh, well, we're not Jamaican, so we stereotyped it, but we're not Jamaican. No, I think across the board, we all have a responsibility to treat each other with respect. It's not just on the backs of the Jamaicans to do that.
Right.
That's where the no comes in. I'm not against us telling our own story, but in the same way that if a Jamaican, and I wrote this on Facebook, like if a Jamaican did a skit where we were doing a similar humor on that kind of platform, like not just, and even in private company, but say on a BBC level platform doing a skit about Bajans, I'd be upset.
Yeah, we shouldn't do that.
You get what I'm saying? So it's not just up to us.
Right, it's not just, this wasn't a Jamaica thing alone. It shouldn't be happening at all. So let me bring in Odessa now.
But it does point to the need for greater diversity of who gets to make what, and also that the standard they should be held to, not because you're Black means I have to put up with shoddy work.
No, I like that. So I'm going to bring in Odessa as well alongside you, Kim, so I get both of you on screen at this time.
Hi, Odessa. How are you doing?
Odessa, you're on mute still, so unmute yourself. Yeah, man.
All right, let me rewind that. Wagwan, Kim, wagwan.
Long time. Hope to IRL. We'll meet IRL.
All right, good.
Kim just wants to sound younger, that's why she use IRL.
I just typed it in another conversation in real life. I'm making peace with my age.
Hey, but you know, you actually have to explain that for some of the people watching. My aunt is actually watching, and I don't think she know what IRL stands for. So in real life, that's for those of you who don't know, IRL stands for in real life. So we want to meet IRL, obviously. So Odessa, you've been hearing what Kim's saying. Where do you stand with that? You're there hand in hand with Kim, 100%, 80%?
I'm still, listen, I'm going right back where everybody's talking about where what I think has happened in the UK, to be honest, is that Black people, because I don't understand this thing about Black. I call myself an African. I'm an African first. I'm an African first. And until we get that trajectory that we are all Africans first, I don't have to hear from another person on the continent that I'm not African, because me tell them about them clout. Them can't tell me that I'm not African. So we need to get the trajectory out there that we are Africans first and foremost, and that we need to own for us. In the terms of what Kim was saying, in the sense of it was shoddy work, yeah, it was lazy. It was terrible writing, it was terrible acting, everything was wrong with that. But again, me growing up in the UK, born and bred, seeing how everything is, it doesn't surprise me. It shouldn't surprise anybody, because that's the narrative. They own it. We can't go inside and do anything to change that. We will never be able to change it. I don't know why people think that we can make small little changes, but it's not going to happen. They own their own thing. It's their thing. Just like we go back to the whole Verse and Billboard thing. It's for them ting and not for we ting.
Yep. So we'll get this. Go on, Kim, go on.
All right. 2 points. One, I agree with that. And actually, a lot, myself and academic colleagues in the academic space talk about the fact that, it's not enough to just put in more Black faces or more people of color faces when the institution itself is built on their systematic and structural racism of this. But I'm a little more hopeful. I'm just naturally a glass half full. When I see what Michaela Coel has done, I know that there is space for new work. Like watching I May Destroy You, I was just like, wait, she just Black. Like, she Black, but it's like she living her life. That's not the essence of who she, and it's, again, there are many.
Yeah, but that's just that's one little token that's going to get in. You understand me?
Fair, but it's
the same. It's one little token that they're going to let in. They're going to let in your one little Ava. They're going to let in your one little Michaela. They're going to let in one little. Let's just speak facts. It's not our thing. It's not our thing. We got to build and support our thing, and that's where we are wrong. That's where we're still there waiting for Massa to give us the little handout.
And I agree with that. I do agree with that.
And we're still segregating each other by calling each other like Africa. We are all Africans. Unless you educate your own brother and sister, teach one. Unless we are going to sit down and talk to our own people,
I agree with the whole thing
about what's real, there's never going to be any change. We got to change within ourselves first. We have to change within ourselves first.
I do agree with what one, us needing to own our own platform, yes. Like, no disagreement.
But we own our own platforms. We own our own platforms. My thing is,
and build them
and support them and champion them and push them and celebrate them. That's what we need to be doing.
The other part of what Odessa is saying about us seeing ourselves as African, on a personal level, definitely don't disagree with that. But that skit is also symptomatic that this is not a notion that's widely held.
Yeah, but we call it mandingos, isn't it? Like it's
because you understand me? Between the writers are that the writers are of African descent.
The writers are of African descent, but again, the UK, what we've lost in the UK with Black people is that Black people have forgotten to be African or themselves and have turned into English people. They are English, and they have forgotten who they are of self. And those writers, we don't know what those writers are about, and that's the problem that's happening in the UK right now. We born and bred and grow from the 70s.
They've been assimilated
and moved to Jamaica in the 90s.
Assimilation in David. They have a much right to being British, but not understanding the history of how you got here. I'm not. Right. I wouldn't support anybody saying they don't have a right to that.
Once you're comfortable in that system and you're going to the pub to have a
Yeah,
drink with
because the
Debbie,
system is
I'm doing a
already-
stereotype, or Sharon or Michelle, and you're going to the pub and you're like, yeah, you're forgetting who you are as a person. You're not being you are not being Yoruba, you're not being Jamaican, you're not being Bayesian, you are fitting into their world and their system of who you're. That's the problem that's happening in the UK. We've forgotten who we are.
I wanted to make a second point of like, one, I should have talked about the stereotype in and of it. The part I didn't get to was the whole thing about the dancing and the whatever.
Right.
A lot of people, interestingly, I guess maybe I'm a little scary, so I get more of the critiques in my inbox because I guess no one wants me to burn a fire on them on my Facebook page, right? But and in my inbox, I got a lot of images of people daggering and whatever, and they're like, Kim, what do you think of that? I'm like, dude, again, you know, we recently had a visit from Madonna. If Madonna was daggering at GoldenEye, it would be on the front page. You'd hear how Jamaica is great. Jamaica is fabulous. We're influencing the world.
But it was.
Yeah,
It was being celebrated.
I know, right? But then you're coming to say to me that, you know, us what you call it there, us going into what you call it, us doing that on air is bad. So we also have to deal with our own Judeo-Christian issues. I see Tara talking about I can go to the pubs and stay black. I completely agree with you, Tara. I think, you know, it's interesting. At times I get accused of being too Jamaican. Other times I hear a too white because I like pub, actually. I really do like
So let me,
all
right, I need to bring in the rest. I can bring in Tara and Nathaniel, and I want each of you to take a chance answering Corey's question. I'll go last.
Yeah, I see it.
This is the first time I do in all of us. So we got all of us out there. Corey asked, very interesting. How do you actually feel about the stereotypical Jamaican? So I'm going to start with Kim. I need you to define in your head what is the stereotypical Jamaican.
Listen, I might not be the best person to start with because, you know, that definition of the stereotypical Jamaican. I mean, David, I don't even know what the box is supposed to look like.
I want to know what you mean. All right, fine. Odessa, you go on. You can
I need someone to define that for me.
Stereotypical Jamaican is. That's what I'm saying. It's difficult. It's like, okay, the dad is all he does. Well, from a white man's perspective, the dad is whatless, doesn't, you know, waste man, doesn't look after his kids or whatever, goes around bonking all the women. The black woman is large and in the house cooking rice and peas and chicken and, you know, cussing bad word, and the daughter is like person that goes out and goes to the dance halls and winds up on her man them, and the son is like in the streets roadman.
Right. So here's
let me jump in right now. Let me jump in. As you know, David, I travel extensively across the world, and I've been to Asia, I've been to Africa, I've been to many places, and the question is this: okay, where do you come from? And then I say Jamaican and living in the United Kingdom, and they say, well, you don't look Jamaican. All right, so what does that Jamaican look like? All right.
I've never understood that.
The thing is that there is a stereotype which has been it has been really promoted through the great, you know, musician Bob Marley. And the first image that people have of Jamaica is dreadlocks, and you're to have dreadlocks, and you are a musician or you're musically talented, right? And that's the perception which I get. Then the next one is then all right, spliff, all right, ganja. And that is perpetuated through the images of the t-shirts. I mean, the t-shirt, you go around to New York, you see a big image with the ganja leaf and so forth, right? So these are very strong stereotypes of Jamaicans, you know. And now we've got the same boat which is added to that. Now we're fast. Right? So boom, right, we're strong, we're fast, we have dreadlocks, we smoke spliff, and we live easy, all right? We like reggae music, all right? So In my mind, that's what the stereotype is. However, the perception of somebody else in their mind may be very different, and that's based upon the cognizant reality of the Jamaicans living in their community.
And so exactly. I want to touch on that, and I'm going to bring up Tara, but it's so interesting you bring up that as a stereotype versus we see that same stereotype here in the US, but there's also the other stereotype of Jamaicans being super hardworking, have 10 jobs on the side, and they're going to work extra hard at everything. In New York, New York Jamaican. Have 10 jobs, a doctor, a nurse, or a working professional. So I'm going to talk about my own experience, but I want Tara to go first, and then I'm going to talk about my experience in Miami as what they consider the stereotypical Jamaican when I moved here. So Tara, your answer to this question.
Yeah, so I'd say that we've covered a lot of the bases. There is the stereotype of like a lot of Jamaicans being Rastas. I think sometimes when I speak to people that I know in the UK who haven't been to Jamaica before, they're always surprised to know that the majority of Jamaicans are Christian and not Rastas. I don't think that I don't know, there's no such thing as a stereotype that's progressive or that's useful for the people who it represents. Right. Because we are such a small island with such a small population that has all of these outsized celebrities like Bob Marley, Usain Bolt, which are famous and have a reach that really goes beyond the size of the population. I guess we are kind of the kind of backlash, the negative side of that is that we have these individuals who represent such a diverse population. Right. But yeah, I think that what we have to do is just continue to be ourselves and
take up space.
Acknowledge that like these stereotypes, wherever we find them, especially when they're as offensive and tied to this like history of racism and anti-blackness as the stereotypes in that show are, when we find stereotypes like that, we have to challenge them. Otherwise, we're just forever tied to these images that don't really represent who we are as a people.
Yep. All right. So Akila in New York, immediate past advisory board representative for the Northeast USA and the Jamaica Diaspora Advisory Board says our stereotypes very relative to the audience you're interfacing with, and that goes into my comment now about my experience as a stereotypical.
And I will come after you, David,
and then you come, Kim. Yeah, you have something now.
I
love it. Yeah, man. Now we're going over time, but it's fine. This topic too important. So I grew up between Kingston and Miami, and then Pembroke Pines. So Kingston 21 is what we call South Florida. And I was playing football at age 15. I went to play for the Pembroke Pines Optimists, and so this is a team that's mixed. So it's men and women, male and female. We formed this big circle of 30 players to then figure out who is going to play. We're trying out that night, and the coach kicked the ball to me a few times. I control with the left foot, pass it here, do this. So I do all of that stuff, and then he says, "Where are you from? You're pretty good." I said, "Oh, I'm from Jamaica." Okay, good. You're going to be our forward. And I was like, but coach, I grew up playing defense in Jamaica, in high school. Like, why am I the forward? You're Jamaican, so that means you're fast. We're going to kick the ball past the defense. You're going to run it down and score. So I know, laughing, I can't believe it. Go and tell mom, I was a leading goal scorer that season in the league. And I was the fastest person. It actually has worked out that way. But I ended up playing that position because an American white coach thought I would be fast just because I am Jamaican, right? And the same thing happens now when you go to any party in Miami. Everybody assumes that Jamaicans can dance. So I remember I was in Germany with a Jamaican guy that grew up in Miami, a founder of a tech startup that I was advising. And when we had a party night, we were just doing like mid-season, we were doing a party. We were living in Berlin for 3 months. And so we got to select music. So I put on Sean Paul, Get Busy. And me and there are Willie Bunks and dance. And one of the people said to him, "Hey, Mike, how come you can't dance like David?" And Mike is like, "No, David, born and raised in Jamaica. I don't have rhythm." Like, and he felt, and they made him feel bad for not being able to dance because in their stereotype, Jamaicans know how to actually do some moves and can dance. So it's so interesting to see, depending on where you are and who you're facing, is exactly what happens. So Kim, I know you ready for go tell me some things now. Come.
No, look, like I have to start off with what Tara has said about stereotypes are not used, like they're meant to box you in, right? They're meant to limit your world. They do, even if they do ring true for individuals like myself. I'm Rasta, was a very lapsed Rasta. I mean, the elders are in disagreement with my stylistic choices, put it mildly. You know, I am into music and creative. So, you know, I'm hitting all these like a lot of the stereotypical things, and then I don't, you know, and that's the limit. So they're like, all right, cool, you know, Kim's into, you know, Rasta, into music, loves reggae, you know, will fly back to Jamaica just to make Rebel Salute, big up to the Rebel. But, you know, but then on the other hand, there are other things, you know, you've lived all over the world, and I get that here in the UK, but you're Black. You live all over the world and speak X amount of languages. So, you know, there are limits to these stereotypes. And so the thing is, I think I advise when I have to mentor other Black women, I'm like, live your life. Live your life.
Do you
right?
think?
Don't be trying, you know, I mean, sometimes the stereotype help you out, right? And given the fact that most of the stereotypes that people of color have to deal with are anti and not pro, I guess when it works for you, I'm not apologizing for that either.
Right.
But the reality is most of these stereotypes are meant to keep us in cute little entertaining, but particularly for Jamaicans, entertaining boxes of we will crack all the jokes and whatever, but we don't do nothing serious, and we're definitely not the intellectual firebrand at the place. We are not the uber professional like an Odessa. No, we just crack the jokes.
Right.
I mean, it helps, you know, it has helped me in research because, you know, there is a Jamaican discount I found internationally on anti-Black racism. That's how I put it. So, you know, when I lived in Mumbai, for example, my Nigerian friends had it rough.
Wow.
Me, we don't like Black people, but Jamaicans, all right, you can come to the party. You know, and just that intersectionality of being Black and whatever that we have to be aware of, because, you know, then you hear West Indians talking about African Americans, oh, they don't work hard. I'm like, do you understand that you're not being perceived in the same way? And so that kind of intersectionality that we have to understand about the position we hold, the advantages and the disadvantages.
We are treated differently because we are Jamaican. I saw it in Germany. I see it in the United States.
No, listen, I was going to parties all over Mumbai, and if any Black person will tell you, life in India is rough as a Black person. It's rough. But, you know, Jamaican schools, I just grabbed all my friends with me, but I was very well aware of why I
wear my Jamaica jersey every chance I get to know. I need everybody to know that I'm Jamaican.
You know, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other limits to the stereotype. Like, I can't be the one writing, you know. It's interesting, like, the white person who writes about the reggae industry and the music industry is taken far more seriously than me.
Than you, of all people. All right, guys, so we're at 1 hour and 7 minutes, and I see Rachel Bird asking me what's the temperature. Yes, Rachel, you missed the commentary. The temperature, enough cussing going on. So you can go back to the start when the show finished, and you can watch it from the start, and Nathaniel can fill in, and then the rest of them. So I want to close with just a short closing comment from each of you. I'm going to start with Nathaniel, because I want the women to close it out. So start with Nathaniel, and then we got to Tyra, Odessa, and then Kim Marie.
You see, around the topic of stereotypes, we can discuss the problems over and over again, but then it is about sowing the solutions and sowing into strategies of coping mechanisms, because life is tough and you get pushed around and you get beat up through general life. On top of that, we have to deal with the racial pressures and the prejudices within our societies. The critical thing here for the diaspora is identity. There has been a number of studies which have been done across the United States, the UK, and also in Canada, whereby those of Jamaican heritage do not quite feel Jamaican, but they don't quite feel from the US, or they don't quite feel from the United Kingdom. So there is this in-between space, and there is an identity crisis. Anytime you have an identity crisis, that has an impact on your self-esteem. It has an impact on where you are as an individual. You're not grounded. At which point then, You have then the influences of the stereotypes, which you will play then directly into. You will know the work that I do with offenders, young offenders.
Yeah, safety box.
Especially with the safety box with my enterprise. We've worked with a number of youth, and where we have youth at risk that are failing in the system, they play into the stereotype, or you're going to end up in a gang. All right, so then you're speaking this word into the atmosphere. The word manifests, then it becomes a reality now, because that is the identity, because you don't have an identity. You're not rooted anywhere. You attach yourself to the identity, and then you perpetuate it into the system, which then has a perception of who you are, and you accept that. Now, a way in which we can combat this is moms and dads. Teach them about their heritage and their culture. We have immensely powerful words spoken by people like Marcus Messiah Garvey. A people without knowledge of their roots is like a people without knowledge of their history and their past is like a tree without roots.
Yeah.
And I'm so passionate about this in that we have to teach, we have to lead, we have to invest in our young people. We have to tell them they're kings and queens. We have to teach them about their heritage of African kingdoms and where they have come from. We have to show them the role models. We have to teach them and be that role model for them, so that their identity becomes solid. So when they see these perceptions, they don't believe these perceptions, and they knock down the stereotypes, not necessarily through the words they speak, but through the way they act, which is why you have the New York Jamaicans, which are perceived as being hard workers because their friends, their associates, then will see that. And then we are our own vessels of light to change this very dark perspective that people have. And we need to unify. You know, it's like on the Black Planet of the Apes, whereby you have the planet, the ape, where he has the stick and he says, one stick weak. He breaks the stick and he breaks the stick, and then he has a collection of sticks. He says many sticks strong. This is what we have to do. This is about now identifying with our culture and our heritage. Putting aside politics, putting aside, differences, but then identifying with this core thing, our identity, knowing who we are, where we come from, is the fundamental thing to knock down stereotypes that are pushed on and perpetuated through these systematic and institutional racist organizations and society.
No, man. Well said. So, Tara, your turn to close out, and we got Odessa came in, and I'll end the show. What you want to close with?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thanks to David for putting this panel together. This has been a really interesting conversation. But as Nathaniel said, it's important to study, and we can't defy stereotypes before we really understand what they are and what the ramifications are. So each individual person has a different interaction with anti-Blackness, with these different racial stereotypes that we see. As you've said before, in some industries, it can seem advantageous when you're involved in sports and people assume more of you because you're Jamaican. That can seem positive. But as I've alluded to before, stereotypes are largely negative, and they don't serve. For every person who is lifted up, there are other people who are brought down by stereotypes. There are some instances where people think that stereotypes are harmless, and as history progresses and people aren't educated on the origins of where these ideas come from, a lot of the time very insidious and violent ideas can be normalized and can be accepted in a way that they shouldn't be. So the fried chicken stereotype, for example, loads of people like to joke about how Black people love fried chicken. That was actually popularized by a film called Birth of a Nation, which was a key propaganda material for the Ku Klux Klan, and was used to argue against Black people being allowed to vote in America. So when people joke about fried chicken, they don't realize that they're perpetuating a stereotype that has a very malignant past. So I think that when we see these shows, like the show that was broadcast on the BBC, and it has these tropes in it that we're familiar with that might seem like fun or just lewd, it's important to challenge them wherever we see them. So even if it just seems like the phallic stereotype about Black men, that also has a really dark past. So when we see these instances of things that don't really define who we are as a people, but kind of attempt to impose this kind of trite idea that we are just one and we can't be the different, and we can't be as diverse as we truly are as Black people. We should always challenge that and try to exhaust the avenues that we have within these problematic institutions to make it known that these things aren't acceptable. And simultaneously, at the same time, we have to try to build our own spaces and support our own endeavors so that we can have alternatives and so that we don't have to always consume from these systems that weren't designed to serve us. So that's what I would say. In conclusion, we have to continue to build our own, but also exhaust the avenues that we have to change what we see, because it is possible. We just have to imagine it and then work towards it.
All right, no, thank you for that. So I'm going to start taking out one by one. So I'm going to say thank you, Nathaniel. I'm going to pull you out now. Really appreciate what you brought to this conversation, man. Love it. And then Thara, wow. I love the whole talk about systemic and systematic. Even I learned from that one. So thank you so much. So now we're going to go into Odessa. What you want to close with for this audience, Odessa?
Yeah, I'm not long-winded in anything.
Yeah, you're a behind-the-camera person. Unless you have rum for evenings and on the podcast.
I just want us, stereotypes are a part of life. Everybody has stereotypes in our culture. My thing for us as a people is, again, we are Africans first. We are magical, we are great, and that we need to try to stand up and support each other, because if we're not going to do that, there is not going to be any changes. And even if we want changes and there are systems happening, even though you have things like the BBC and HBO and stuff like that, always remember that they're always going to let in one person through the door, but there's never going to be real true change unless we stick together, support, celebrate, and grow as a people. And that's basically it.
Love it. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Kim Marie.
Oh, I should have argued not to be last. But I think, look, a few points. I think my closing is one, supporting the sentiment that we need to support our own platforms. My own studies on, how Nollywood grew, how Bollywood grew, were through their own platforms, and now the system is inviting them in. And so there is an important need for us to organize and challenge these stereotypes where we see them, because they're harmful, they're limiting. But I also want to add another point. The point is not to challenge stereotypes to create this new good Jamaican stereotype. The thing is to have no stereotype. That should be the aim. Where if I, Kimmery Spence, am completely worthless, then I, Kimmery, am worthless. It's not all Jamaicans are worthless. So I always talk about, the core of the fight for equality. People talk about the right to be good. I'm like, actually, it's about the right to be worthless and individually worthless, and not because everything I do is now, Black women do this, right, Jamaican women do this. So the thing is, it's just for people to understand that there's Jamaican is an identity, and an identity that requires work to pass that down through the generations, particularly in a diasporic way, in a diasporic circumstance. But it's about us having the right to be good, in between. But unfortunately, a lot of bad stereotypes are thrown at us. In terms of the arts and culture aspect, we need to challenge it and keep challenging it, so that this kind of laziness is not a go-to. If one, the learning that there are other ways to represent Jamaicans, and if the carrot part won't work, then there's a stick that Jamaicans are gonna talk up if you represent them in this very lazy, dated way. And so I want to thank Jamaicans.com and of course yourself, because I have gotten comments from other friends of color who admire the fact that Jamaicans got together and made their disagreement known. And it's about a unity for the platform, but also for us making our own comments known, particularly in a country that we continue to help build.
No, man. Thank you so much, Kim Marie, for that. I think that is a great closing. So I won't have too many words to say. So I'm going to have you come off now. We're going to do the closing and we can all disappear and try and relax this afternoon. And then we can go back and share this with our friends. So thank you so much, Kim Marie. Stay safe in the UK and see you in Jamaica IRL soon. Soon. Everyone, thank you so much. The show went 20 minutes over, but as you can see, we had to stay on this topic. We had some amazing guests, as you can tell, and I'm so happy to have some of my friends. Right, some of them are people I actually know, but I also need to thank Nathaniel for ensuring that Sarah came on. We got someone that I have never met who brought a really interesting perspective and a younger approach to it. But we can see where it is. So Odessa, thank you so much. Nathaniel, thank you so much. Kim Marie. This is a topic that's important. Please share this video with your family members. Discuss it around the dinner table, especially this Sunday. Stay safe where you are. Remember, COVID still a keep, right? COVID-19 is still out there. Please let us be responsible as well and be very careful about going out without masks, doing things that we don't have to do, partying. Please, social distancing is important. But this is 2020, and certain things just can't continue anymore. Next week, Island Forward, same time, same place. Show is going to actually have a representative from JAMPRA, Jamaica Trade and Invest, to talk about Jamaica and what does a post-COVID Jamaica look like. What has JAMPRA been working on and what do we envision the future of Jamaica to look like? So stay tuned for that one next week. Really appreciate your time. I don't take it lightly. So thank you, everyone. Tuning out, signing off later. Respect and one love.